Stop relying on high-frequency presence knobs and crisp treble boosts to make your guitar tracks cut through a mix. One of the most revolutionary, heavily emulated guitar tones in rock history, Eric Clapton's Woman tone on Cream's Disraeli gears, was a direct violation of every engineering handbook of 1967. It was an anti-textbook experiment that corporate studio executives initially classified as a completely dead, muffled tracking error. You know, modern guitarists have developed this fatal obsession with chasing ultra-clear top end. You boost the highs, crank the presence, and what do you actually get? Thin, ear-piercing tracks that violently clash with the cymbals, leaving your mix sounding brittle and weak. It's a total trap, and we're going to tear it down today.
Just look at the sterile, modern, digital habits we see all over the place today. Way too many players think great records are made by keeping meters out of the red and playing it completely factory safe. Let's contrast that nonsense with the heavy, liquid, vocal-like texture of the late 60s British blues explosion. The tone we're digging into today is the absolute exact opposite of modern crispness. It's thick, it's honking, and it literally breathes with every single note. We aren't talking about pristine ones and zeros here. We are talking about the raw, sheer physics of overdriven vintage components.
We need to frame Clapton's legendary tone on Disraeli gears not as some mystical, unattainable magic, but as a direct physical violation of standard engineering practices. Back in '67, when Clapton walked into Atlantic Studios in New York for a 3.5-day sprint to record this masterpiece, he brought a '64 Gibson SG and a Marshall stack, and proceeded to track with a signal so aggressively dark that textbook engineers would have immediately stopped the tape. But the actual genius of this tone, it lies exactly in that anti-textbook approach.
Part 1. The capacitor fault and the physical anatomy of a Gibson SG. So on his Gibson SG, Clapton was running vintage output patent-applied for, or PAF, humbuckers. These read around 7 to 8K ohms of resistance, wired up to 500K audio taper potentiometers. His technique was simple, but radically destructive. Select the pickup, crank the volume to 10, and violently roll the tone control all the way to 0. Now, inside that guitar was a standard 0.022 microfarad tone capacitor. When you roll that pot to 0, you're placing that capacitor directly in parallel with the pickup. You aren't just passively stripping the high end away, you are aggressively altering the pickup's natural EQ curve.
Just look at the frequency drop-off here. Rolling the knob down didn't just casually cut the treble, it violently altered the resonant peak. By adding that capacitance directly to the circuit, the resonant peak is forced into a completely new, much lower frequency band right around 440 Hz. That's basically an A note. This creates a massive, focused mid-range spike. That is exactly why a fully rolled-off tone control still has so much raw power and push. It isn't just dark, right? It is a laser-focused battering ram of lower mid-range frequencies.
So what exactly happens when you take that massive 440 Hz battering ram and slam it into the front end of an amplifier? Well, Clapton was plugging into the normal channel, not the bright channel, but the darker normal channel of a 66 Marshall JTM 45/100 head. This exceptionally dark, heavy signal hit the preamp and forced the KT66 or EL34 power valves into a distinct mid-range square wave clipping. You can notice how the nonlinear tube distortion literally chops off the peaks of that heavy mid-range. It compresses it, creating this incredible thick, vocal-like sustain that just hangs in the air.
Part 2. Transformer overload and the Atlantic Records variable.
Here's the thing. Amateurs roll the tone off, plug into a Marshall, and then wonder why it sounds like someone threw a wet blanket over their speaker cabinet. They're completely missing the crucial hidden studio factor that salvaged this massive bass-heavy signal. And that factor was legendary Atlantic Records engineer Tom Dowd. Dowd was a former Manhattan Project physicist who actually built the first 8-track recording console. Just look at this custom Atlantic analog desk. Dowd looked at this muffled tracking nightmare coming from Clapton's amp, a sound most engineers would have flat out rejected, and made the deliberate, conscious choice to completely disregard standard operating levels. He didn't ask Clapton to turn his tone knob back up to 10. No way. Instead, he used the console itself as a weapon.
Dowd ignored factory-safe operating levels and just drove the console's input transformers incredibly hard. In audio engineering, transformers use a magnetic core to transfer signal. When you hit it with a hot enough signal, that core completely saturates. This extreme harmonic saturation, especially down in the lower and middle frequencies, acts as a soft knee compression. It takes that muffed Ebba-Fado square wave guitar tone and forcefully injects odd and even order harmonics back into it. He literally restored the missing harmonic definition, not with EQ, but with brute force transformer distortion.
Now, take a look at the modern digital audio workstation or your fancy multi-effects unit. It is cynical, frankly, how many players will gladly spend thousands of dollars on boutique pedals and custom-wound pickups chasing this exact tone, all while completely failing to realize that the architectural secret behind it is absolutely free. You don't need a vintage Atlantic Records console to achieve this gain structure today. You just need to actually understand your signal path.
Let's map out the routing and see exactly how this builds in a modern modeler. Step 1, insert a steep low-pass filter block. Step 2, place it before an aggressive preamp drive model. If you aggressively filter the highs out of your raw guitar signal before it ever hits the digital preamp block, you force the modeler to saturate the mid-range instead of the treble. You are recreating the exact physics of the capacitor fault and the transformer overload. You're starving the distortion engine of high frequencies, forcing it to violently clip the low mids, which generates those new, thick harmonics.
Part 3. The Workbench and Finding Real Mix Authority.
A real mix authority is never, ever found in the safe zone. If your tracks are weak, it's because you're too scared to commit to extreme EQ and saturation decisions right at the tracking stage. Radical frequency carving separates the real engineers from the preset surfers. Ignoring the safety manuals, deliberately misusing gear, and pushing components past their intended mathematical limits to force nonlinear harmonic generation, well, that is exactly what we do here at the Tone Manual. You have to stop treating your signal chain like a fragile museum piece and start treating it like a physical matrix that demands to be overloaded.
So here is my direct challenge to your technique. And I really want to see this fought out between the vintage tube purists and the digital modeler architects down in the comments. Do you actually manually roll back your guitar's volume and tone pots to radically reshape the internal gain structures of your amp or modeler? Or do you still just leave everything on 10 out of sheer habit, wondering why your tone is so thin? Drop your arguments in the comments below, defend your signal flow, and I'll see you on the next deep dive.